Welcome to Mothership. I am Candice Brathwaite, and today I am here with the gorgeous Jolie of Pregnant Then Screwed, and today we are talking about work after kids. Hello to all of you at home. Before we begin, I just want to dive into what I think are some really shocking stats. 54,000 women a year are pushed out of their jobs due to pregnancy or maternity leave. 54,000.
Yep, that's 1 in 9. 1 in 9 pregnant women will lose their jobs for daring to procreate. And I think what is really shocking as well is that those figures have almost doubled in the last 10 years. So far from improving, the situation's drastically deteriorating. Lots of people say, well, it's getting better, women's rights are improving. That is just not true. They really are getting worse.
And we want to hear from you guys at home. Let us know what your experience has been. Feel free to comment below. This is an open-ended discussion. But firstly, I want to hear about your story. What's been your experience?
So I was working for I was 4 months pregnant when I decided to tell my employer. I documented everything. I sent everything over by email. And I had planned everything meticulously to ensure there'd be no problems for them. Sent the email, suggested we have a conversation the next day to discuss. The next day they called me and left a voicemail to say my contract was being pulled and I needed to hand everything over immediately. No reason was given, just that's it, it's over, put the phone down. So obviously, I was left 4 months pregnant, and unemployed. What do you do? I was visibly pregnant. Do you apply for jobs and tell them that you're pregnant when you go for an interview? Do I try and get freelance work, which probably won't come through for 3 or 4 months, and then I would be having the baby during that time? I had a mortgage to pay. I was terrified, utterly terrified, and I tried to access justice. So I thought, okay, I'll get a lawyer, and managed to find one. It wasn't easy. Nobody could help me. Found a lawyer. The lawyer wrote the charity a letter. The charity just threw that in the bin. They just ignored it. That cost me £300.
So you're jobless?
Yeah.
And you forked out 300 quid?
Yeah, when I have no idea where my next paycheck's coming from. I have a mortgage to pay. I'm about to go on maternity leave in 5 months' time. So hemorrhaging money like that was utterly terrifying. And so then the lawyer said, well, the next thing you can do is take them to tribunal. So I said, okay, let's do it. We're going. Let's go to tribunal. In the meantime, I went for a routine doctor's appointment and discovered I was having a high-risk pregnancy. I could go into labour at any point. And the doctor said, whatever you do, don't get stressed. That will bring on labour. So I had to drop the case. I had no choice. And it ate away at me that I had been treated like that and couldn't do anything about it, because you only have 3 months to raise a tribunal claim. I had the baby. I attended parent groups, started talking to other mums about what had happened to me, and discovered that the majority of women I was speaking to were something had happened to them. They either had been bullied or demoted, or they were really terrified about going back to work. They were worried about flexible working. And yet I had no idea that this was a problem. So that's where the anger came from. That's why I started to think, what are we doing? Why does nobody know about this? Why are we not talking about this problem? Because it's enormous and it's affecting so many women. All these mothers that really want to work that can't.
And also, it's not just affecting women, it's then affecting their partners. Because then the whole household income is being slashed immediately. And then whoever the partner is has to pick up that financial burden. And it's such a quick change. I don't know many households in the UK now that could just be like, oh yeah, no worries, we've got 50k saved. We can get on with this. Like, it's just not a reality anymore.
And if you take something to tribunal, then it costs a fortune. You have to pay legal fees. You have to pay a lawyer to represent you. Nobody has that kind of money when they're on maternity leave. And what isn't taken into consideration enough is the mental health of the woman who experiences this. So you're having a baby, it's terrifying in itself. This being that you have to keep alive. You don't understand what you're doing, and everything you know is snatched away from you. You know, your career is taken away from you, what you've been working on for years and years. And suddenly, you know, you see the world in a very different way. That's how it felt for me.
Yeah, I think you lose your sense of self. My employer didn't push me out. I used to work in publishing, but I just found striking that balance incredibly difficult, especially if you want to quote unquote move up the career ladder. If you're not seen to be the first in and the last out, no one's going to promote you. But then it's all the mental work that comes with being a mum before you get to your desk. Got to sort feeds out, got to get you to a childminder. Do you have enough nappies? And then you're at your desk always thinking, okay, they're going to call any minute now. She's going to be sick. I'm going to have to run off. So it's like you're just caught in a sticky situation either way. Either your employer's really bad and wants to sack you, or you're holding on by the skin of your teeth. And it's just so sad, especially because you would think for how far technology's come and how you can work from home, that flexible working would be more of an option by now.
But it isn't, unfortunately. In the UK, 10% of jobs are advertised as flexible. And the majority of people that get flexible working don't get the sort of flexible working that they want or that works for them and their family. And companies just don't seem to be seeing the benefits. It's good for everybody, flexible working. Time and time again, the research shows that it's good for profit, it's good for productivity, it's good for well-being of staff. And of course, it's good for their employees. But for some reason,
they're just not buying
it's just
it.
It's not computing.
Sticking. These numbers, 2.2 million people stay at home to look after children, 60% of whom are looking to get back to work. 40% of employers say they would avoid hiring a woman of childbearing age.
So this is something as well that isn't taken into consideration. Of course, you have discrimination in the workplace, which you've said the statistics, and that's really obvious. But what many women don't realise is they can face discrimination just during the recruitment process. If you are of childbearing age or if you have young children and that is made obvious, it is highly likely, 40% likely, that you will not get that job. And yet you can't prove that. It's not tangible, it's not obvious, but it's happening.
I know my sister's friend went for a job interview recently, and it was a woman interviewing her, and she was like, off the record, if you're thinking of having kids in the next 2 years, this isn't the job for you, because that's just not something we will stand for. I was like, stand for?
Don't you dare procreate.
It just blows my mind that it lacks common sense. So we're building these businesses, be it a coffee shop or a technological company. You need people to continue to buy. Where do humans come from?
Exactly.
It makes no sense. And it feels really unfair because a lot of these women who are being forced out of the workplace are really good at their jobs.
They're really good at that. I think mums are brilliant in the workplace. I mean, you can multitask like a ninja. And if you put the job description of a manager next to the job description of like the role of a mother, there's so many similarities. Nurturing, you know, you've got to let them fail before they can succeed. The multitasking side of it, all of that. You learn so much from having children, and I really believe that being a mum makes me better at my job, and having a job makes me a better mum. The two go hand in hand. The subconscious and conscious opinion of employers is that mothers are distracted, they're preoccupied, they are going to prioritise their children over their work. And yes, they are going to prioritise their children over their work. Of course they are. But that doesn't mean that when they're in work, they're rubbish. To the contrary, all of the research shows that mothers are really dedicated, brilliant employers and team players. But we're just not, we just have this stereotype in our heads of, you know, mothers who just can't be bothered.
And it's funny, before, if I compare like the pre-mum me to the me now, I wasted so much time when I didn't have kids. And now in any working situation, I'm like, can we just get on with, you know, because you know you've got a job to do, and you now know how precious time is, literally. So you're in it to win it. I just don't understand why employers wouldn't see something good in that.
No, exactly. And this is the whole flexible working argument as well. By forcing somebody to sit at a desk from 8 till 6, because that's the way things are done round here.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to get lots of people messing about on Facebook. I did when I was forced to sit at a desk from 8 till 6. But if you treat somebody like a human being who you trust and give them the freedom to work when they need to work and when they have the time and the headspace to work, they'll do really good quality, productive work.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, employers just don't trust their employees. And that's not good for business, surely.
Please tell us about your experiences below. Have you been forced out of the workplace, or have you gone back to work and things are just not the same as they used to be? Let us know below, because clearly we have a problem. Yeah. But Jolie is going to tell us all about Pregnant Then Screwed. So you don't need to tell me because I know, but tell everyone at home what Pregnant Then Screwed is about.
So it was set up as a place for women to tell their stories anonymously. So we wanted, because these stories weren't being told, and the reason they're not being told is we know people don't want to be branded a troublemaker. Yeah. But they also, many of them have signed non-disclosure agreements. So you can document your story anonymously, and that means we have a record of what's happening. Yeah. We have a free legal advice line. So if you feel you're being discriminated against, give us a call. We have some amazing, really talented, brilliant lawyers that work on our advice line, and they will tell you whether you've got a case, what you should do next. They'll help you through that process. If you are being discriminated against and you think you want to go to tribunal, it's tough. Going to tribunal is hard. But we will help you get through that process. We pair up women who've been through an employment tribunal with a woman that's about to go through one as peer-to-peer support and friendship. And then we also have a flexible working helpline. So if you are trying to get flexible working and you don't know how to go about it, then you can call us. We'll help you figure out how to put that request in, what needs to go into that information, because you only get one chance to make a flexible working request, which is ridiculous, but we will make sure that you do that in and have the most chance of success possible. And we have a forum where people can discuss what's happening to them, and they can discuss the hardships of being a working parent. And we also exist in America, Spain and Sweden.
No way. I didn't know that. I did not know that. Wow.
So we, when we started to get traction, people were really interested in what we were doing. We had loads of people from America contact us saying, we need one of these here, which they do desperately, let's be honest. The system in America is barbaric, and we're very lucky, actually, in comparison to America. 1 in 4 women in America go back to work after 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
I think I still had stitches in.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't get dressed after 2 weeks, so going back to work it's horrendous. And then we even have one in Sweden, which we all think is the nirvana, but there are problems in every country. No country is immune from this. And Spain. So if anybody's watching from any of those countries, then get in touch as well.
Wow. So would you say that Pregnant Then Screwed is your silver lining to what happened?
Yeah. Absolutely. I'd say it's my silver lining and my revenge.
Yeah, and you're entitled to that. Yeah. I'll give you that.
Thank you. I mean, when I started hearing all these stories from women, and then it happened to 2 of my friends, and I set up the website, and then when women started to contact me, and some of their stories were, heartbreaking. Women who'd lost their homes, women whose relationships were ruined, whose confidence was so on the floor, they were never, ever going to recover from it. And so that's driven me to do more and more to really resolve this problem, because it is enormous. Yeah. And I don't believe it will be resolved in our lifetime, sadly, but I think we have to really start somewhere, and we have to start shouting and stamping our feet and getting together and being as loud as possible that this needs to change, because it affects everything.
It does.
And it seems like it's just a bunch of mums complaining because they haven't got their jobs, but that's not this is about the gender pay gap. This is the cause, the main cause of the gender pay gap. This creates poverty amongst families. Yeah. It creates relationship breakdown, families that just aren't working. There's all sorts of symptoms and issues that come from the fact that we're not respecting mums in the workplace. So we need to resolve it. It's so important.
Before I move on to my favourite segment, which is Ask the Internet, I have to say I was on a panel at the Pregnant Then Screwed Festival, and there is a picture of me bouncing my son on my knee whilst talking. And I don't know why I'm welling up at this, but my sister messaged me and she was like, it's such a powerful image to see you doing what you love. And you have the ability to take your child to work. I don't think employers understand just how iced out you can feel.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Don't be sorry.
How iced out you can feel when you decide to become a mum. And for you to be able to offer women like me that platform and see that it can be done.
Yeah. And it's so rare that you
is.
see that. And when I had my second baby, I was invited to speak on some panels at like quite conferencey things, places where this just wasn't seen. And I said, well, I will come, but I'm going to bring my son and I'm going to breastfeed him on stage while I'm talking. And even if he didn't need feeding, I made sure I breastfed him on that stage because I wanted people to see that. I want it to be normalized, because why can't we have our children with us?
Yeah.
He didn't disturb anybody. He was fine. And it's just not normalized. What feels more normal is, well, a white man sat on a stage in a suit talking, and we need to break that because it's no good for anybody, you know. That's not reality, is it? And it's cutting women out of the workplace and out of professions.
So my favourite segment now, where I've asked the internet how you can prepare yourself to go back to work. And the internet has said, ask for a phased return to work for the first few months. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's really important. I know that for me, I really wanted to go back to work. I was looking forward to it. But when I got there, I cried in the toilets every day for 2 months. And my confidence had gone. It was just noise. People were talking to me about work stuff and I couldn't understand what they were saying. Yeah. Because I'd spent 9 months with a baby doing something entirely different, very important, but very different. Yeah. And of course, the emotions are running high. You've put your child in childcare, you're sleep deprived, all of that. So having a phased return helps you feel comfortable with your childcare solution and helps you feel more comfortable about going back to work. And it's tough, like trying to get that routine. You feel like you've done a day's work before you get to work. Yeah. So having a phased return allows you to get more comfortable with that routine, so you don't get into work, you know, with your hair up here and you're feeling really stressed and then start crying in the toilets like I did. And, you know, hopefully you'll have a nice boss that understands that it's going to take a few weeks before things click and you're back.
Speaking of bosses, it also says plan regular reviews with your line manager.
Yeah, I would say that's also a good idea. I did the same when I went back to work, and thankfully my manager was very understanding and I could be very honest with him. But by planning those reviews, you have an opportunity to say how you're feeling and to ensure that they're not making assumptions, because bosses, I think, tend to do that. You know, you've been gone, you come back, they sort of forget that you were gone, they forget that you need that time to catch up. So the reviews help to kind of fill those gaps.
Lastly, ask for help. Don't pretend that everything is okay.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I did pretend everything was okay. Yeah. And I think
we all do.
Yeah.
You feel like you're under a magnifying glass because you're the one that's gone off and been on maternity leave, and other people are like, holiday, and it's like, well, no, you come back frazzled, so you feel like everyone's waiting for you to put a foot wrong. Yeah, and you feel that pressure, don't you, from your colleagues really severely. So I mean, it's not kind the way people treat you, and you feel like you have to get back in and be on it straight away and be amazing to show that you are still valid and that you are still needed in that role. But that pressure is no good for you. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, look, you know, I need a bit of time to get my head back together, or I'm feeling a bit emotional, or go to a doctor. And if you're really feeling, you know, that you need some help, try and get maybe some counselling, or
With hindsight, I really wish I'd gone and sat and talked to a doctor and said, I'm not feeling right at all. But I was hiding it from everybody. But talk to your friends and your family and your partner.
Yeah.
Talk to as many people as possible and tell them how you're feeling so they understand.
What an important conversation. Jolie, thank you so much. If you are pregnant and find yourself screwed, leave a comment below, because clearly more of us are in this sticky mess than you could ever imagine, and I will see you soon.
Wow.